Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Coast to coast college football.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going into the end zone.
The sickest college football podcast.
Here goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal back. He ran it back 109 yards.
It's going to be sick.
That's right. It's the Sick Podcast, Coast to Coast College Football Show. I'm John Lundy, East Coast side. He's Dan Lynch, the West Coast transplant. It is Friday. We're recording this a little bit later this week, but we are excited to bring you yet another college football show. Dan, how are things out in the West Coast in assuredly sunny Los Angeles?
Oh, dude, it's actually a balmy 45. Just kidding. It's beautiful, John. Every single day it's beautiful here, just like West Coast college football, man. Hopefully not getting left behind in the past from our friends in the Deep South for meetings this week. But listen, happy to be here, man. How's everything back on the East Coast? I never asked you about the weather on the East Coast. Time of year, it's changing.
The grass grows too fast around this time of year. And if you're a homeowner, as people in the East Coast sometimes are more often to be than on the West Coast, despite our millennial age and the average household ownership now, people buying homes is raised to now 59, which probably isn't what you'd want in a society. But here we are in 2025. I'm lucky enough to have a home with my wife, but unlucky enough to have to cut the grass now more frequently. I try to put it off as much as possible, but our area has the lawnmower guys and the landscaping guys, so you can't be that guy whose yard is the longest on the street, because people start to question if you really care, and you'll get the look. So you kind of have to keep up with it as best you can. It's the worst.
Now, we talking push mower? I could see you on a John Deere, like, I think 770.
Yeah, shout out to my Uncle John, my godfather, a couple years ago when the first year of being in this house, it was rough. We went the electric battery route for the lawnmower and the weed whacker, and it was a struggle. You know, you'd get halfway through the yard out in the front, not even touching the back, the battery die. You'd go get the other battery. Maybe you'd get the full front yard done and then have to wait a day for the batteries to charge for the backyard. Gas, baby. Drill, baby, drill. If you're doing lawn work out there, forget about this electrical nonsense. Bring the real boys out. Rev those motors. So he got me a sit-down cadet, and I'm telling you what, life-changing. And to top that off, this summer went the gas route for my weed whacker. Life-changing as well. We are in a whole different ballpark. It's like going from a golf cart to a Corvette now, doing the work outside with what I got to work with.
So
good.
We're talking crispy lines. Are we talking like zigzags? Are we doing patterns, or are we just going straight up, straight down, like hit that mark? You know, also, what length are we going at this time of year? Because you don't want it too short, correct?
Right. So we're doing the highest possible length because we wait till the last possible minute, and then you're just left with too much grass. What do you do with the rest of it? They don't pick the grass up in our neighborhood, so I can't put it in a barrel or put them in bags. You just have to throw them away with the trash. So you cut the lawn, and then you mow over it about 2 more times to try and get it all emulsified as best you can, and hope that there's not huge clumps in the yard that are just going to attract yellow jackets and rabbits making their nests and different things like that. I don't have the perfection to get the great football field streaks that you're going to see on some of these yards. There's one house in the neighborhood who's that guy. Everything is prim and proper. He was out in March getting rid of the dead grass, ready to roll. He's got the perfect lawn if you ever want to put it on a Hallmark card. So we let him be the shining light in our neighborhood, and everybody else is just sort of at an amateur level, aside from the guy that comes and does everybody's yard, and you just give him a wave wish I could afford you, buddy. But
one day, John, one day. So we're talking your neighbors like the Pasadena of the neighborhood, right? The Rose Bowl, beautiful Bermuda grass, perfect cut. I'm trying to think of a football field that has an ugly look to it, but it's still just football. Maybe
Boise
the Old North. What's that?
Boise State. Oh, that's terrible.
That's real Bermuda bluegrass. No, I'm thinking maybe like the old Northwestern Stadium. I feel like that field was always just like, man, that's what they're playing on today.
Pretty much every Big Ten school that still has grass and then purposely lets it grow as long as possible when they have a big home matchup coming against one of their foes. So they'll have the right cleats and equipment to make sure that they can handle the high grass, and the other guys coming in aren't ready for what's about to befall them, where the grass is hitting their shins and they brought their normal cleats. Little did you know you were coming into the Thunderdome. We may have watered the grass a little bit too much the night before too. Whoops. Any advantage that you could possibly get in the Big Ten for its running game scenarios is exactly what you need. I will say, though, shout out to the lawn guy in our neighborhood. When I did bring home the weed whacker from Home Depot, no free ads, he goes, "Hey, what do you got over there, an Echo?" Again, no free ads. I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "That's a great weed whacker. Good choice." That's all I needed to know, man. Perfect.
That made your day. It made the lawn.
That's the Nick Saban gives you a little head nod when you call the play in the huddle and it works out from down the sideline. That's the Dabo, a couple claps. It's all you're looking for in this world is for your favorite coach, your idol, your hero, your mentor. You get a little hat tip. That's all you need. Now, whether I use the tool correctly moving forward, that's up for debate, but at least I have it. That's it.
Are we going like straight dad? Like, are we going goggles plus the cover on your ears as well?
We got the goggles and we have the millennial iPod actual headphones in the ear. None of this wireless nonsense. Jacked up as loud as it could possibly go. So much so that your iWatch, again, no free ads, gives you the, hey, loud environment, buddy. Maybe you should turn down what you're doing. And I don't know if it means the yard work or that I'm pumping a punk channel from Pandora, no free ads, into my headphones. So I haven't figured out what that case will be. But I know 20 years down the road, this hearing's gone. We'll be the radio guys that have the decibels turned all the way up just to be able to hear anything. But that's the cost we have to bear.
What'd you say? What? Oh.
That's why you get an NEPA. You know that. Huh?
Oh, good old 570.
What did you say? No.
Oh, okay, John. If there was one song that Greg Sankey was listening to this weekend in Destin, what do you think it would be for the spring meetings?
Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, because he just watched the rehearsal on now HBO Max. That's it. That's the name of it now. So he was still in that excited mode of perhaps Sully listened to this while he landed the plane in the Hudson River. I might as well listen to Evanescence too, because who knows what motivation that will give me at this week's spring meeting. So I think Evanescence Spotify numbers, I haven't checked, again, no free ads, have to be through the roof if people are fans of the rehearsal and watching what that episode was. We don't have enough time to explain what the rehearsal is.
No, we
if
don't.
If you haven't seen it, should, as they say.
Yes, and shout out to our Canadian brothers up north, the Sick Media podcast system, sending one of their best down to the States, Nathan Fielder, making one of my favorite shows of all time. I still think season 1's a little better, but we'll get into that later. But I think Evanescence Wake Me Up Inside for Greg Sankey this week in Destin is totally appropriate. Obviously a ton of things going into these meetings. And the common, I guess, sentiment that's coming from these meetings is what's good for the SEC and what's good for college football. And Greg Sankey kind of has to balance that, right? Because, cream of the crop, he's at the top of everything, even though the Big Ten won last year. Like, I still think the offseason you would think like an SEC team won. But still, these guys are making all the decisions for the Big 12, the ACC, and pretty much the rest of college football. And we're just at a point, man, where going back to the Evanescence line, wake me up inside, call my name in pride, save me. Maybe that's what Brett Yormark is singing.
Wake us up when September ends to just keep giving horrible wake-up song choices, especially when you find out what he actually wrote that song about. Death taxes and another year of SEC spring meetings where the main conversation ends up becoming, we're the best, treat us that way. Why haven't you been treating us this way? Moving forward, you will treat us this way, or there will be dire consequences. is basically the sentiment that Greg Sankey has been coming out with now since the college football playoff came about, and especially now that it has expanded to 12 teams, and especially when it's expected to expand to 16 teams once they get all this figured out by the end of November, beginning of December for the 2026 version of things before it potentially gets changed again. We know that the SEC has become the best conference in college football. Anyone in other conferences that roots for their favorite teams can tip their cap because of the championships that they've won, the dynasties that have been built, the coaches that have come through there, the players that go to the NFL. We get it. But when the college football playoff came out, it excited a lot of people because there was more opportunity for the casual fan in X conference to have their team represented. And then when it moved to 12, well, now you've opened the floodgates. Everybody's got a chance, which was great. But, of course, Greg Sankey made sure to mention that, well, it's nice to have everybody at the table, but maybe you should be sliding a couple more of the sides a little bit closer to us at the seats instead of spreading it amongst evenly everybody that's sitting here. Used to be 5, RIP to the Pac-12. Now there's even less seats, and the sides remain the same. He still wants them all for himself, baby.
Well, the Pac-12 has a chance of making the college football playoff next year, technically, right? Because they're starting the new league. So, I think it would be so funny too. Like the last year of the Pac-12, you had Washington make the college football playoff. Maybe in the 16-team seed or format, maybe they win it. That would just be unbelievable. But yeah, man, I think from Greg Sankey's standpoint, he kind of has a point, right? Like the best teams are playing down there, right? Like you could probably make an argument that maybe Ole Miss could have made it last year. They had some bad losses at the end of the season, but look at their schedule, probably way better than SMU's. But for the greater good of the league and the entire national competition level of it, we need to have everyone. So I think moving to 16 is great. But the other thing that I love that came out, I believe, last week was the seeding. I love this idea, right? Like last year, I put on there earlier this week. I don't think Ohio State wins the national championship if they did a straight seed instead of what the format was last year. What do you think?
I don't disagree with that. By the way, don't forget to mention Alabama definitely would have deserved to get in last year had it been 16 and the SEC got their way. We can't leave them out because the comment sections will be furious as they've been on social media all week. Alabama deserved to be in.
Yeah, Bama too. Yeah, Bama for sure. And, Kalen DeBoer has the experience of playing coaching in a college football playoff. I mean, they almost won with Washington. So yeah, it could have been extremely interesting. But yeah, going back to the straight seeding format, right? The only thing that I have against it is it does kill the group of five's chances of even thinking about getting to the national championship game. Like Boise State last year.
More often than not, this is it for them.
Right. Like, and I guess the Pac-12 would be in that group. I mean, when Boise State played last year, we all kind of went into the college football playoff being like, oh, no, it's just not going to work. I mean, you had Genty, but look who you're going up against. And, it's just unfortunate. So I think going forward, that's just going to be a part of the narrative of yep, that team who has to play that group of five, yep, they're going to move on. They're going to be rolling. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be awesome. And, once we move to 16 teams, which it sounds like we will, Brett Yormark today went on ESPN and basically was like, yeah, this is going to happen. So that 16-team playoff with the seeding probably is the best thing for football. I wish we could just be fast and move and just be like, hey, next year we're doing it. But obviously it's, contracts and everything doesn't work out like that. But man, we're moving, we're grooving, and we always have off-season topics to talk about, Johnny.
So for people that don't know what the SEC is arguing for and what the Big Ten will argue when their spring meetings come out, they've been quiet this week. Tony Petitti is not ruffling any feathers, but they're pretty much hand in hand for what they want to do to college football, while the ACC and Big 12, the lesser of the 4 now Power 5 conferences, sits in the back on, what about us? what is it? They want to get 4 in for the SEC, 4 in for the Big Ten, 2 from the Big 12, 2 from the ACC. Flip your coin for the other best teams to make sure we get all our numbers correct. Power fives stand strong. Group of fives, we'll see where you guys fall at the end. Some have argued, like Lane Kiffin, whether he's just enjoying playing things up to the media, as Lane Kiffin is known to do, that it should just be the 16 best teams. Forget about us getting 4, the Big Ten getting 4. Everybody's final record gets thrown in, and we just go from there. So everybody has their arguments for it. The ACC and the Big 12 obviously want to be represented at the table. They seem to argue, though, that they're more for what I am really willing to stand on a hill on. They say, well, part of this, too, is we just got to be better and win football games. My biggest argument of college football, and a T-shirt that I'd love to get made, is simply winning games has to matter. That's it. And that's been the mantra of sports since these games were created in playgrounds with peach baskets, with actual pigs, playing football, basketball, whatever baseballs were made of many, many years ago. And Abbott said, hey, this will be a fun game with these sticks. Winning has to matter. And what's frustrated people in normal life over the years, and you'll see many parents say these jokes, is that now sports have just become participation trophies for kids that are growing up, where everybody doesn't necessarily win, quote unquote, but they get awarded just for participating in the sport, which for some age groups, that's perfectly fine. Let's just get out there and enjoy the game and have fun, and maybe it'll develop into something where you can actually try to be competitive with it. But what's frustrating about people in college football is they will just lean in on these, well, we had a better strength of schedule. We had a better this. We had a better that. Here are all the metrics how our season was more difficult than yours. Here are all the metrics where we did X, Y, and Z better than you did. Okay, but you know what you didn't do better than the teams you're pointing out did? Win the football games. Win the games on your schedule. And in every professional sport and in sports that we had growing up, the first thing you do when the season starts is you get a look at your schedule that somebody created for you and go, all right, we've got a pretty good year this year. We're home against Team X. We're home against Team Y. We only have to go on the road to play Team Z. This is a year where we can really get things going because of all the guys we have coming back, et cetera, et cetera. Every fan of a team does this. The NFL has made a spectacle of it, releasing games here and there before the final drop of the schedule, and fans go crazy. Where you're playing, who you're playing, what divisions you've got this year. And as a fan, you think, maybe the ball will fall our way this year. Maybe we have it in the bag. For whatever reason in college football, people just lose this idea of sense and logic and think that everything needs to be a perfect lineup every year, and it should favor their best teams, their best conference, hand up SEC and Big Ten. Where are our rewards for how good of teams we produce and how many NFL players we produce every year? That's not how it fucking works. The games have to matter. And some years you're going to be favored and some years you're not. That's how sports goes, man. What else do you want us to do? You give them every benefit of the doubt the best way that you can. But games has to matter. I don't care if Indiana didn't play anybody last year. They won the games.
They played UCLA, bro. They played UCLA.
5 top 25 teams last year. If you didn't win the games, you can't make the playoff. You can't be rewarded. The games have to matter. And as a fan, you should want to say when a season is over and you've beaten those teams, look who we had to go through this year. Look at the gauntlet we had, and we still fucking won. That should be something that you hold near and dear to your heart. And previous national champions in all the sports have similar stories of, dude, look who we had to beat, and we still won the championship. That's such a rewarding feeling as a fan, as a player, and as a coach. And for whatever reason, people want to throw that out of college football because it might be unfair for us this particular season because we weren't rewarded for things that have happened in the past. It blows my mind, Dan. Every year we get into these discussions with the SEC and the Big Ten about how unfair this all is when we can't just logically put on our thinking caps and think what's best for the entire sport of college football. I don't understand it.
Yeah, man. There's so many points from that beautiful rant that you just went on that I want to hit.
We curse on here. We're going to find out. This is the first.
Yeah, we'll find out.
And it's deserved.
But John, I think a lot of things that we're moving to is the sport of college football used to be such a regionalized sport, right? And that was only like 5 or 6 years ago. College football has changed so fast that college football fans haven't been able to really keep up with everything. And there's so many different storylines. There's so many different writers telling you things that are happening that it is hard to keep up with it and hard to tell what is the truth, right? But the only thing that every Saturday that fans get together, Friday and Saturday, sometimes Monday, Tuesday, if you're a Maction, shout out to the Maction, is winning the game. And if you don't win that game, then why should you be there? And John, I completely back you up on that, but we can't ignore it. There are massive differences between the SEC and the Big Ten compared to all of the other schools and the ACC and the Big 12. And say whatever you want about it, but that's just the way it is. You can talk about funding. You talk about there's it's not fair, the balance of the money that they're getting from these massive TV contracts and stuff. It isn't fair, right? It just never will be. I mean, you could even go back to even just, it's not even fair for some schools because Cal and Stanford, if you're playing there, you have to have a 3.2 to be on the field or not. And if you're not, then you can't play. We talked about Bill Belichick, a lot last week. One of the biggest things he's done at UNC was bring down the academic standards so they could bring players in to compete with people in the SEC.
As North Carolina does.
Yes, exactly.
Bring down our academic standards again. Sure.
The beautiful sport of college football is just about getting an edge in little things, right? Just like, hey, we could get this player in. You might not have had the best math grade from X school in Alabama, but guess what? That kid could kick step and he could get his hands on someone. So there are weird differences and weird imbalances that the modern game hasn't kept up with because it has become such a national sport. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. But to go back to the main point that we were talking about, the seeding, does Ohio State win in this format from last year?
I mean, I can't say that there's a definitive no that they wouldn't, but it would definitely be a much more tougher road. And that was a discussion point before the playoffs actually started, was when they threw up the schedule on the screen and we looked to see what path they would have depending on who won what games. They had an easier path. And you know what, Dan? Sometimes that happens in sports. And specifically, if you want to stay in college basketball, when the tournament comes out every year, the first thing you do is check off the bracket on, okay, who are we going to get this year? Did we even get a good seed where we're listed in whatever region we are? But now what happens if all the best teams win? Do we have a shot at these guys? And that was one of the first instances where we got if they had done this, look who they would have played. Right. How much better of a game that would have been. I think what people sometimes forget about, too, with the 12-team college football playoff is we've barely done it.
Yeah.
And already we want to change it. We barely, if you think about it, did 4 teams. Yeah. It was still kind of new, and that was something that wasn't even more tweaked. And instead of going to 8, let's go to 12. And now let's start moving the seeds around. Everybody just hold on, and let's see how this goes. For 5 to 10 years, we don't do this in other forms of life. Well, at least we didn't used to. Things have changed a little bit when it comes to science and research for whatever reason in this day and age. But you would do studies repeatedly for years to see what kind of results you got before you made your final decisions. The college football playoff happens, and immediately people want changes. Well, hold on. And some of me thinks that there's part of the sport of college football that could say to the Big Ten and SEC, hold on. We know you're powerhouses now, and we know you potentially will be for the foreseeable future because how many teams both of you guys now have. But in sports, more often than not, water always finds its level. The ACC was once a powerhouse in college football with the Florida States and Miamis, and then came back around when Dabo made Clemson what it was and won a couple championships with them. We've seen Pac-12, RIP, teams win national championships or compete for them. The Big 12 has opportunities to do the same, and they're in a historical part of all of this when in 2014, TCU and Baylor were told to fuck off because they were in the Big 12.
And look at them now. And they were in the national championship. But here's the other side of that, John. What happened in that national championship, right?
Well,
you know, that's where it comes down to.
Dicey. Right.
I was at that game. There was actually a legitimate tornado inside of SoFi Stadium. One of the craziest things. I also saw a security guard fall like literally 3 stories and then get up and walk. It was an insane game. Rick Neuheisel walked over to him and said, "Do not get up," and he got up and kept working. So shout out to that guy. But yeah, man, that's the only problem is just like when that happens, like let's just say, in theory, a 16 seed somehow gets it all the way to the championship game and plays the number 1 seed. They get there, they battle it, they do it. The number 1 team had that bye. And in the national championship game, we get another TCU versus Georgia. Like, that's the fear of it. But listen, I'm all for more teams. Like, I love it. I can't wait to see it kind of happen. But I am with you, Johnny, that we just don't have enough to go off of what we just have done. We just did the 12-team playoff. And guess what? It was a massive success. We had fun with it last year, right? Yeah. Like, it was awesome. We followed it from start to finish. The only thing I do not like, and this isn't necessarily a popular opinion, but I kind of don't like the home field advantage in the first round. Not a big fan of it. I think if you're getting to that level and you're playing, make it as even as possible, right? Don't take a team from the South. Like the SMU game versus Penn State in the first round, just looking at the game I'm like, those kids look cold and they don't want to be there, man.
Right.
Like they don't. And I'm not saying like play a game, in perfect weather. No, I'm not saying that, but just make it a little bit more even from a standpoint of fandom, because there was no one from SMU at that game. And they probably have one of the most wealthy fan bases in the country who could fly even students there, but they didn't even make it. So that's the only thing I have with this one. It's just make it a little bit more even and maybe take away the home field games, because to me, it just didn't really add that much to it.
I do battle with that because there definitely can be home field advantage for colder weather teams, just naturally. We've seen it in baseball in the World Series where they're playing games in November and it's 20 degrees at an East Coast site where a team might be used to playing in the South or the West, and now it's the coldest game they played in the most important game of the year. In college basketball, you play in these small, loud, incredible environments, and then for the most important games of the year, they say, "Hey, we're going to put you guys up in a football stadium."
80,000.
Good luck figuring how to shoot when there's 80,000 people sitting there and you're shooting into a backdrop that's 300 yards away. So in a lot of cases, why are we making the most important games different than what teams are used to playing throughout the year? There's going to be a ton of discussion on this because, as we mentioned, the Big Ten still hasn't stepped up to a podium to explain where they stand on this. I think the main sentiment for college football fans is you just want people in the room that are thinking about the future of college football and not the future of their conference, because that changes the discussion when you're tasked at talking about, for example, Greg Sankey piloting for the SEC, but not necessarily thinking about anyone else in his wake. That's all we're asking for is sensible minds in the room. And from the people that talk about the college football playoff to the people that select the teams that play in the college football playoff, we haven't had that much great honesty or trust over the last several years with those processes. But surely this will be year they figure it out. That'll do it for the Sick Media Coast to Coast College Football Show. I'm at London Bridge on Twitter. He's at Dan Lynch Sports. That's SPURTS. We're also at SickPod CFB on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast.
You name it, dude.
Subscribe, rate, and review. All the nonsense that you hear from people that do these shows, it's true. Help us out if you can. Leave us some comments on what you thought or what you want to talk about. Dan, enjoy your week.
Get to mowing, Johnny. Get to mowing, bro.
Get to mowing, and we'll see what the Big Ten has to say next. I'm sure it'll be.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Coast to Coast College Football on YouTube, X, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.